Welcome back everyone to the deep dive. Today, kasama po natin someone joining us live from, I don't know, Hawaii. No, I'm kidding aside. No, ito kasama natin, very special friends of ours, good colleagues of ours throughout the years. Hindi lang pang politika, pang skincare pa. So, pag-usapan natin mga yan. But before we go to skincare and kilay, before we go to skincare, kilay ang pag-usapan natin. So, along that line, Professor Chin Franco, pag-usapan natin. I'm sure this is totally unrelated. Senate. Let's talk about Senate. Um, One of the things I always liked about people like you is that you're not just the typical political scientist and academic. You also have a background working in the government, particularly in the
Mm,
bureaucracy of the Senate.
mm,
Hindi lang
mm,
for this office or that office. Yung
mm,
bureaucracy mismo. So it's yung institution. You serve the institution itself.
mm.
And of course, you also have a background in mass communication. So that always made you, in a privileged position to be able to explain things in a way na digestible. So before we talk about personalities, Boy Kilay, Boy Sile, Bam and Kiko and Lenny and Risa and the movement, Pink Movement, um, Jin, how does it work in the Senate? How does the majority work? How does the minority work? Gaano ka big deal na majority ka versus minority ka? How are the seats allocated? I work in the Congress. I did work with some offices in the Senate back in the day as a consultant. But I know the dynamics are very different in the House and the Senate. And I never had experience of working as a bureaucrat in the Senate. So
Mm.
in that sense, I always felt I'll be more than happy to be enlightened by people like you. Jin?
Richard, in the past, kaya mabilis yung turnover ng Senate presidents was because kung wala ka sa majority, parang technically parang mawawalan ka ng mga committees, no?
Right.
And that will also spell the difference between having a good budget and a not so good budget for your office. Kaya pinag-aagawan yung Senate presidency at syempre everyone wanted to vote for whoever the Senate President will be na nakakuha na ng boto. Pero ngayon kasi, mas marami na ang committees compared
Right.
to the senators. So, they all have the same, what I know is that ngayon, okay na yung budget nila, whether you have a committee or wala. Kaya lang, ang pinag-aawayan ngayon, syempre, yung kung anong committee ang ibibigay sa'yo.
Right.
And yeah, so syempre pag meron kang pet bills, meron kang agenda, meron kang niche na gusto mong ipakilala sa mga tao, you will probably request that you be a chair of this committee. And that's why that will make you want to vote for a specific Senate president.
Right. So basically, kailan nag-start ito na dumami yung mga committees para lahat naman may trabaho? Kasi the reason why I'm asking is this, I mean, we all know Rizal Ontiveros was a minority. She
Yeah, yeah.
continues to be a minority, but she was still in charge of a very important committee that culminated or had the denouement of Kibuloy being arrested.
Mm-mm.
The Pogo Queens like Alice Go getting busted, right? Eventually, even the president going ahead and banning Pogos. So, kailan dumami itong mga committees na ito? And then, the next question, of course, importantly is, kailangan bang maging committee chairman ka per se? And kailangan majority ka to get the committee chairmanship so that you can be effective? Or pwede naman maging vice chair ka, di ba? Or you can, I mean, it's a collegial body of only 24 republics, right? So I think, I just want to understand how does it work? Because in the Congress, alam ko 300 kayo. Kung wala kang
Oo,
kasya kay
oo.
speaker, wala kang, yari ka talaga, di ba?
Hindi
But
ka mapapansin, oo,
ay, hindi talaga
oo.
malulunod ka, di ba? But
Oo.
hindi naman na palengke ang Senado. It's a very small body, literally and figuratively. So, some of us are wondering, do you really need to be majority? Do you really need the chairmanship? So, what is the state of play there, Jean?
Yung kay Senator Riza, no, talagang napaka-outstanding ng ginawa niya. Pero yung, alam mo ba yung Senate Committee on Women and Family Relations? Which was the committee, no, that investigated yung kay Kibolo, yung kay Alice Go. Ano yan eh, kumbaga that's considered a minor committee. Particularly, walang lalaking gustong mag-chair noon. 'Di ba? So, iilan na lang kayo. I remember, I think the only guy who chaired that at one point was Raul Roco. Kasi naman ang image niya, honorary woman, no? Pero other than that, ano lang, no? Si Senator Riza lang ang naging popular or nagkaroon ng magandang agenda at nagkaroon ng media mileage yung Committee on Women and Family Relations. So iba yon, iba yung sa kanya, no? But then totoo yon pag wala ka sa majority, there is a very big chance that your pet bill will not move because it's up to the chair of the committee, for instance, to calendar it for hearings, no? Para lang ano, no, gumalaw. And then pagtapos na yung hearings, nasa majority floor leader naman para i-calendar yan for plenary deliberations, no? Unless meron kang linya sa Malacanang na gagawing certified as urgent, then dun bibilis, no? Yung pag ano ng and there have been studies na the average ano daw, noon pa to sa reproductive health law yata ito ginawa. Parang 11 years para makapagpasa ka ng batas. So, matagal talaga. It might even outlive your term. Yung mga ganon. So, that's something that is usually the reason why people want to be in the majority. Oo. So, yun yung, or senators would want to be in the majority. But then it's also true, no? Kung uh, articulate ka, then what you can do is to react to issues, no? Especially national issues, hindi yung, may mga issues naman kasi na national significance, but are not really very sexy. Like noon, yung no? Health committee was not very sexy. Ngayon, because of the Malasakit Center and then
Because of Bongo,
PhilHealth and the
basically.
pandemic and Bongo
Yeah,
also. So,
basically.
naging ano siya, naging sexy committee siya. So, yun yung kalakalan dun
And
siguro.
Riza also made the Committee on Women Affairs a very, important committee, right? It's also what you do with what you
Yes.
got, right? With the
Yeah.
cards you were dealt with. No, thank you very much for that, Professor Jim Frank, for clarifying that. So what you're saying is that dumami yung committees, so even if you're not part of majority, you will have a committee. But nevertheless, being in the majority assures you of not only getting the best possible or preferred committees, but also chairmanship of these committees. And
Mm-mm.
that consequently raises also in probability that you may get your preferred bill or
Mm-mm.
legislation passed. Hopefully, in the 11 years, because that means at least two terms. So
I
maybe a
know.
little bit faster, shorter. Maybe we want to look at newer political science studies in terms of the speed, no, of
Yeah,
legislation. Is it
oo.
improving? It's not improving. With the exception, of course, of the pandemic days when emergency naman
Mm.
yung situation. Now, the next thing I want to ask here is, okay, if you join the majority, what are the mechanics there? Okay, to just spell it out. We had Justice Carpio on this show the other day, and also our resident. So we had the legal luminary Justice Carpio, and then illegal luminary si Ronald Llamas. Both of them, their question is the same. What's the quid pro quo? Is it because cheese loves you? Okay ka na dyan? Kung maganda rin ang kilay mo or you went together to your Paris Fashion Week or you're going to Milan? Like, how does this work? Like, sasali ka lang ba sa majority dahil lang trip ka lang ni bossing? Or there's an understanding that we're gonna be on the same page, not 100%, but maybe 90% of the time. I just want to understand ano yung kalakaran dyan sa Senado. Again, I
Ah,
understand in the Congress, it's quite, you follow the leader, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
there's no way you're gonna be majority and then like, magmamaganda ka. So we had, for instance, Geraldine Roman, Congressman Roman
Mm-mm.
on this show, right? And she explained to us bakit she voted very controversial in certain issues. Sabi niya, basically, yung time na yan, yari ka ng speaker. Not to mention, yari ka rin ni Digong. Baka lalagay ka pa sa narco list, di
Mm-mm.
ba? So again, yun yung kalakaran sa nung panahon na yan, and some would say in the lower house, where the speaker is really predominant, hegemonic almost. How does it work in the Senate? How do you join the majority, and what comes with the perks, kumbaga?
Well, if you're with a majority, you can ask for additional budget. Yeah, no? Travel budget, additional staff support, no? Yung mga ganun. And also, with regard to the case of cheese, I'm pretty sure that whatever discussions uh, each senator has made with Cheese, and in the run-up to supporting him, meron dun yung impeachment, no? And I'm sure Cheese really just wanted to be Senate President. So, siguro meron siyang sinasabi na parang, I mean, it's up to you whatever your vote will be, but then, um, I want to be Senate President again. If you want me to be Senate President, then I can give you this committee, no? Pero tama ka, hindi puwedeng walang quid pro quo. At the end of the day, I think, Cheese knows na lahat naman ng boto na yan depende how the trial will play out.
Okay, now going back to that question, so basically what you're saying is that yun nga, we both love Fashion Week, just you still want me to be the creative director. So kidding aside, my understanding kasi is the numbers wise, she's already had the 13 eh. Kasi you had the two
Ah,
Tulfo brothers, you had the DDS 7, uh, I think if I'm not missing, I think even Lauren at some point was open. So there's an argument that he may have had already the numbers, so basically, Bam and Kiko were not the clincher for him. But I'm also amenable to the argument that if you're Cheese, you want to play safe, and maybe Bam and Kiko were at the end of the day the safety valve, no, or medyo may
mm,
cushion, diba? So in that
mm,
sense, it works for both sides. Now we will talk about the impeachment soon, but what I want to understand, Jean, is it's not like impeachment lang yung issue sa Senate, right? There are going to
mm,
be a lot of legislations. There's going to be a lot of
mm,
hearings that will reflect not only, so this is the theory of power blocks, no? So with every
mm,
power block, there's a hegemonic block within the power
mm,
block, right?
mm,
My understanding is that yes, Jesus Scudero is a Senate president. We can have a long conversation about how effective or ineffective he has been. But my understanding also is that he's very much beholden to the DDS 7. And with Marcoleta most likely getting the Blue Ribbon Committee and and all of that, I mean, the sense I'm getting here is that ang laki nung say nung DDS 7 within the majority block. So in
mhm,
that sense, even if for Cheese, this is about, pare, love, love, love tayo dyan, di ba?
mm,
Don't you think you can come under pressure by the DDS 7 to say, oy, baka naman gusto mong sabihin yung mga iba dyan na, to come on board on other issues, aside from the impeachment issue, which we'll discuss shortly. Again, I'm just trying to make sense out of what is the reality of the mechanics of Senate politics, because I think there's a lot of fantastical or presumptuous theories
mm,
being made about ano yung kalakaran dyan sa Senado.
mm. Well, I guess, yeah, tama ka, the yung hegemonic block ng, pro Duterte senators, is there. But then, eh, precisely baka yun yung point that she's actually, argued, no, in front of the senators who are not DDS, na I'm not gonna be, I mean, impeachment is just one issue. So I don't care what your issue will be, but on the impeachment process. But then other than that, um, if you want to be a member of my committee, if you want to be majority, then join me. And I guess for the um, DDS 7, sa kanila, existential issue yung impeachment eh. So that's probably the only thing they have in mind right now.
And logically, they would put pressure on Cheese to move in a certain direction, right?
Yeah, but I guess at the end of the day, it's difficult for them for Cheese to really categorically say that I'm gonna vote for this or that, mainly because my sense is that it will really depend on the public pulse, the pressure, and how the trial will play out. Expect surprises. I mean, in case there is a trial, 'di ba?
Yeah, which is like interesting, right? Like with Cheese, we're not even sure if he's determined to get the trial going. But for
Yeah.
me, it's not like it's the trial alone lang, no? So we had Senator Trillanes also on this show on multiple occasions who explained that from their own experience of previous impeachment, it's not just the trial, but also the mechanics of the trial.
Yeah,
Pag-usapan yan.
the rules,
The
oo.
rules, exactly. So para sa akin, okay, go ka sa trial. Senator Rafi Tulfo also said we have to go with the trial, the Tulfo brothers, everyone's. But for me, it's not only the trial per se, it's how the trial is going to be
Yeah,
effectuated,
exactly.
right? Case in point, yung money trail, right?
Mm-mm.
Are they gonna allow subpoenaing of certain evidence that could really prove as decisive, diba?
Mhm,
If not,
mhm.
basically the Deus Ex Machina. So for me, again, in theory, I'm not saying that's gonna happen. In theory, you can see a situation whereby cheese being cheese, diba? One
Mm.
kilay to the right, one kilay to the left. He can split the difference, right? He could say,
Mm.
okay, eto na lang, let's have it at trial, but maybe we can massage a little bit. So, you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to be
Yeah.
realistic about here that if your cheese, I mean, this is just game theory, right? The rational option for you is not to be total in one side, but to a little bit lean and then kind of split the difference, right? The reason I
Yeah.
say that is because I see that in international relations, which is something I always focus on
Yeah.
in negotiation between the states. You always split
Oo.
the difference, right? There's a compromise, but the compromise is asymmetrical. So I'm also
Mhm,
trying to
mhm.
understand, even on the trial issue, isn't it para masyadong low yung bar kung sabihin mo, hindi, pwede na, I mean, magta-trial naman siguro sila or pro-trial naman sila. So okay na yan, that's it. Wala na, they're gonna be, like, I want to understand, is it possible to be independent within the majority block? Like, can you be a minority within majority?
That's a good question, no? Um, it's difficult unless, like for instance, in the case of Senator Bam and Senator Kiko, they just wanted to really chair the committee, and they will face being in the majority on a per issue basis. You get what I mean? Baka ganun yung position nila, no? I understand that there have been people who in sectors that are not happy with their decision. Wala pa naman, sabi nila sa 28 pa, but there are already people or netizens posting na they're not happy. And these are valid, ano, considering that some people campaigned for them or even voted for them, asked their families to vote for them. But then at the end of the day, ang reality rin is that you, I mean, even during the campaign, if during the campaign you said, I will have this policy, I will approve this policy, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin yun on your own dahil hindi ka naman executive eh. You need to play politics, no? Good politics, so to speak, to be able to shepherd the approval of your pet bills.
Right. Now, everyone talks about, public pressure is important dun sa issue ng impeachment, trial, etc., which we'll discuss very shortly. But my point is public pressure also important if some people want to join the majority or not. Because you can clearly see, I mean,
Yeah,
let's be honest,
yeah,
Kiko, I don't know about Bam, but Kiko keeps on posting right and left, right? I think he is concerned about potentially alienating certain
yeah,
quarters or parts of his base. So at least I appreciate the effort by Senator Kiko to keep on reassuring people. So clearly, hindi pwede yung maghintay lang tayo. You make things happen, right? So I think it's very
yeah,
important na proactive ang tao and they raise their concerns. Again, we're not here to cancel anyone. I don't think that
yeah,
helps
yeah.
anyone. Ilan na nga lang
Tama,
yung matino, tapos ika-cancel mo pa.
tama ka, tama,
Hindi ito
tama.
cancel culture. This is really about making sure lang, medyo tapatan naman tayo dito, di ba? Magkakaalaman tayo. Because I want to go back to the DD7 idea because, you know, the idea always in Senate is 24 republics, each have their own mind, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
But the DDS have really changed the game, right? Because they cohere, napaka-cohesive nila. I'm not saying that they're perfectly, like on the same, singing to the same tune. We know there's a bongo Sara dynamic. I was just
Mm-mm.
in front of the
Mm-mm.
detention center of Digong in March in Hague, and I was asking people, bakit wala sila bongo or others? And may nagsabi, ayaw kasi ni, ano, di ba? Like, I'm very aware, right? More
Oo.
than aware, right? So we're not saying na 100% everything is fine and done within the House of Duterte.
Mm.
But the reality is that napaka-cohesive nila.
Yeah.
You have Batorni, you have Boisili, you have Mr. Malasakit, like bam, 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 bam. Like it's very consistent yung line nila
Mm.
and it puts pressure. And the next thing you know, yung mga Duterte light ay biglang pumapasok. Kunyari, hindi, pakinggan natin si Bato, baka palitan niya yung isip niya, di ba? Ito yung ating legal luminary na si Cayetano, for instance, right? So, what I'm saying is that, isn't the lesson from the DDS7 which actually was just DDS3 before it became really a solidified 7, especially with Marcoleta coming in,
Oo.
Cayetano there, Aimee there. Um, and then it could be actually DDS even 8 kasi you have two Villiers, right? So my
I
point
know.
there is, hindi bang lesson there is you have to actually cohere so that you can have more effect rather than you have to split yourself? Kasi, again, this is a very valid point na ni-raise
Mm.
ni Ma'am Lenny. See, again, some people debate now when Ma'am Lenny said that thing on July 11 on the podcast, was she directly referring to it? I'm just having a hard time not seeing it referring to it. But anyway, I can see the argument that konti na nga lang tayo, and then kung lahat pa tayong minority at wala tayong gagawin, wala tayong matinong chairmanship, wala tayong ma-accomplish, yari na tayo, talagang maging marginalized tayo. I
Mm.
can see that
Mm.
point. But I can also see the point that, okay, while that argument may make sense from a more
Mm.
short-term tactical point of view,
Mm.
can it can't it come at the expense of a much more long-term pragmatic or strategic cost, which is you're spreading thin, you're already very limited resources, right? You only have three really solid senators. And some would say, again, correct me if I'm wrong, some would say, kung sana nag-cohere yung tatlo na yan, if they were cohesive and solid together and maingay sila on issues and all, they could, you could imagine Sherwin Gatchalian could have been with them. You could imagine the Macho Boys block, once they realize they cannot be the Senate president, may eventually defect to them. You can also imagine that the Tulfo brothers may also have second thoughts, right? Cheese Batayga. Like, in theory, Rizzo Ontiveros becoming the minority leader, Senate minority leader, also wouldn't have been impossible if there
Mm.
was that kind of cohesion and all. Again, I can
Mm.
be criticized. Richard, armchair ka lang. But that's why I'm asking people like you who are, yes, armchair too, but nevertheless serve in the Senate.
Oo.
Is
Yeah.
that a crazy line of argument? Or Mickey Mouse pa yan? Is that a Disneyland way of looking at it?
No, no, that's a valid argument, no? But then, as we speak, we still have how many days? 9 days. Uh, you know how it operates, no? May resolution that goes around.
Explain, yeah. Please explain the
Oo,
yes,
there's a
kasi people
resolution
are
that
not
goes
familiar.
around supporting a specific Senate President and then magsasign. Yung iba, titingnan, nag-sign na ba si ganito? Pag nag-sign na, and of course, within the process, may tawagan, I'm sure ngayon may mga Viber group chats and everything. So, everything is very fluid where even as we speak and even as we see a lot of pronouncements, no? On social media, sigurado na ba 'to, ganito, ganyan, minority, no? And the mere fact that the people who voted for or the progressive senators are already being hindi naman canceled but being questioned by their supporters, ang tingin ko, it's, they're listening. Especially nga, sabi mo, si Senator Kiko, no? Kasi nag-issue siya ng statement just kahapon po, this morning about the impeachment. So, in effect, what he is saying is that si, solid pa rin ako dun sa impeachment. Mm-mm.
Which is why I ask, yun lang ba dapat ang bar natin? Like, I mean, let's imagine you're part of majority. Mark Oleta is doing something fantastical with this Blue Ribbon Committee. And then your majority, can you go on and criticize the DDS7 or some member of them? Is that okay if you're part of the majority? Or isn't there an understanding na baka gusto mo medyo bumait kay Mark Oleta kahit kung ano-anong ginagawa? Do you get what I'm saying? I'm realistic
Yeah,
here,
yeah, yeah.
right? Because feeling ko kung trial lang yung basihan, napakababang bar yan because 6 years to eh. It's a mahabang runway yan. The trial issue is just the next 2 months probably or 3 months if ever it even happens, right? But for me, there's so many other issues na pwede maging problematic in the coming
Yeah.
months and years kung saan kung ano-anong gagawin ni Batorni, ni Mark Oleta, ni
Oo.
ganito ganyan. But your majority, so the understanding is, oh, mag-iingay ka ba, di ba? I mean, I'm not sure they can say things the way that a minority member like Risa would do if she
Yeah.
feels some of her colleagues are out of line.
Mm, tama ka. Ako, I'm thinking that they probably know that anyway. Fragile naman ang Senate presidency. Who knows? After ilang months, iba na naman ang Senate president. You know what I mean? I just wanted to show that from day one, I'm gonna work. So I have this chairpersonship. And anyway, the Senate is treated as a Senate Republic, as a separate republic. Pag may ayaw ako, then I'll show it. And uh, there are ano naman, other ways to show non-support. Pwede namang hindi ka maging ganun ka-vocal. Pwedeng, I don't know, tanggihan mo na maging member ng committee mo or something like that, no? So these are things that the progressive bloc probably knows. But yeah, I perfectly understand your point, no? That will it they're compromising their position should they say something about a member of the majority that um whose actions may not be uh, acceptable to them. It's they're going to be in a very difficult position.
Yeah, you have to go along, right? There was Bat pa kayo in the same team, right? If you're gonna call out some of these DDS7 or some of their actions, etc. Because let's be honest, maging brutal itong Senate na to. Kasi existential yan, di ba? I expect the
Mm,
DDS7, particularly DDS4, to go all in, di ba? And talagang mamaya kung ano-ano yung isapina nila, kung ano ang gagawin nila, away-away here and there. So I'm just laying out kumbaga,
mm,
ito yung maging lay of the land, no? Let's scenario
mm,
building tayo. But I also like your point kasi I also had that in mind. What if papasok tayo with cheese until the end of the Milan Fashion Week and then we coup him out and then bringing,
mm,
I don't know, Zubiri or, no, I'm kidding.
mm,
Si
mm,
Zubiri kasi hindi pa rin niya natanggap yata natanggal siya kaya bitter na bitter siya. Because I would have
mm,
expected him to be in DDS7 eh. But
mm,
I think because sila rin yung nagtanggal sa kanya, he chose to be with Macho Boys. So you're right. It's a very fluid and a very fragile
mm.
alignment inside, no? So, okay, given that, what is the best way for these three progressives, Bam, Kiko, and Risa, to still show a united front, no matter what kind of majority minority divisions they're gonna join?
Well, I guess they should be consistent with their brand, no? And what it concretely means, no, when in terms of their legislative activities and pronouncements.
Um, Jin, now let's talk about Sara Duterte. Like,
Mhm.
um, okay, so from your experience of working in the Senate before you became a political scientist and academic, how do you assess yung performance ni Chizo Escudero over the past 6 months or so in terms of handling this issue? I mean, a lot of us can see what's going on here. The guy is just trying to survive and keep his head
Yeah.
above the water, right? But having said that, it's not like this is the first time things like this are happening. We had impeachments in the past. We had Pepe Pimentel at some point even resigning from his Senate presidency in protest of certain actions. Okay, so compared to, hindi naman tayo nag-age reveal or anything like that. I'm just saying, compared to the time that you worked before, um, are you seeing a qualitative shift? Or you're just seeing a variation on the theme?
No, there is a marked qualitative shift, no? Nawala na yung ano, nawala na yung statesmanship na meron, no, nung araw at least na dati kasi ano eh, sabi yung mga empleyado nga would really go to the plenary just to listen to debates. Ngayon kasi may piped in na eh. Ngayon pinapatay na nila because they don't want to listen anymore, no? Kasi I still have friends there, no? So bumaba and uh, before kasi even if there were artista, celebrity politicians, they were incentivized to perform. Why? Kasi meron andun pa rin yung mga uh, uh, Neptali Gonzalez o at least si Drilon nung mga ano no latter years no. Um pero ngayon kasi parang I mean why will I be incentivized to do well? Eh wala
Bakit ako
eh.
mag-Ingles? Hindi naman tayo Amerikano. Yun, yun na yung level ngayon, di ba? Ba't ba ako mag-Ingles? Bakit Amerikano ba tayo? Parang siya pa yung galit, di ba?
'Di ba? O yung gano'n. So, talagang nakakabahala. I'm not being elitist, 'di ba? I'm pretty sure
You're being meritocratic. Iba-iba
magaling ka rin
ito.
magaling and ikaw magaling ka mag-English, magaling ka rin mag-Tagalog, 'no? So, hindi porket hindi nag-i-English, eh, hindi na matalino, 'no? At of course, 'pag senator ka, hindi naman puwedeng alam mo lahat. Kaya nga there was one ano 'di ba na parang sinasabi si Riza Ontiveros daw was being coached by her staff. That's very normal. That's very normal. Kasi hindi naman alam ng senator lahat ng issue. Ang hindi normal yung kapwa mo senador, didiktahan ka nakitang-kita ng camera. That's really abnormal. I have never seen that.
Ba yung boy
No?
Dila or yung ba yung...
I have never seen that. No? Ang meron nung araw, pero discreetly 'to, hindi pinapakita. Halimbawa, medyo hindi magaling na senador, ang gagawin mo may interpellation, hindi ko na wala ano na 'to, blind
Oh,
item. May
wala
inter
na. Ito lang blind item
may
tayo
blind
ngayon.
item
Oh,
sir kay
mahirap na.
Richard sa ano ni
Oo.
Richard sa
Shout out kay
podcast.
OG Diaz.
Halimbawa, merong bill, ang gagawin niya, merong script na tanong na ibibigay sa ano. So, alam ko na tatanungin mo to. So, para magmukha akong magaling. So, may ganong dynamics. Pero walang nakakaalam yan. 'Di ba? Pero ngayon kasi, yung bumubulong na, that's just something that I have
Wait,
not
wait,
seen.
wait. You're saying there was a script para maging mukhang magaling? Eh, bakit ganun ang lumabas?
I know, oo.
Naalala ko yung ano, yung Rodrigo Duterte II, yung naging vice mayor ngayon sa Davao, yung binigyan niya
Oh.
ng script. Sa script, kasama pa, kailangan ka mag-hammer, kailangan, mali pa rin. Tapos pupunta na naman mag-coach. Hindi, ito, lalagay mo lang ganyan. So, I'm just saying, even having a script is not an assurance.
Oo, ang
Get it
mahirap
right.
din kung ang script mo galing sa ChatGPT. Kasi baka may nakalagay ba, I can tailor fit this to your please add more context, di ba?
Wag lang Grok kasi medyo ano racist yung Grok eh. Yung Grok is the
Oo.
one on Twitter na version.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Medyo neo-Nazi na siya minsan but no, but going back to this, I think what we also did not see in the past, although I have a critic of that point of we used to be this golden era, then now
Oo.
tired. I'll go back to that very shortly,
Mm.
no? But going back to etong sinasabi mo yung ano nagka-coach. For me, what was weird, eto naman, blind item ulit yan, pero
Mm.
medyo magaling magboxing yung isa. Maraming magaling magboxing. Nakita natin, di ba, yung si Cayetano at Zubiri, muntik nagsuntukan.
Oo,
Si
oo.
Arnis versus Caldero. But going back to this, meron daw sinasabi sa Senate, parang, pag may nagsispeech sa harap, kunwari si Drilon, alam ng tao anong term yan, biglang gagan, anong sinasabi? Tapos huwag kang makulit, nakikinig din ako. Alam mo yung mga ganon, yung mga roar, yung mga sa dulo, para sila, hindi nila, huwag kang magulo, nakikinig, hindi ko rin gets eh. Ano sabi yung ganon, ganon, di ba? So, I think that really told me, medyo may problema na tayo, mapunta na tayo sa exciting part. But Gene, I want to go back to that very argument na okay, we had our patrician moment, the Roman
Mm.
Republic moment.
Mm.
I hear all of these nostalgic stories na nag-rush ang tao from Katipunan ng Ateneo para abutan yung debate, ganito, ganyan.
Mm.
Okay, pero ilan kayo sa population ng Pilipinas? In fact, I would say, I remember when I was watching them, because I grew up watching BBC Heart Talk. I grew up watching CNN. 7, 8 years old pa lang ako, I was watching those things. I'll tell you what, I love those programs, and maybe that's why where I am today. But when I used to watch the Senate debates, I'll be honest, parang hindi naman pretentious, pero parang you hear Latin terms, you hear legalist terms.
Kasi, oo.
I would say, hindi naman ako illiterate. As I said, like I would love watching BBC Hard Talk or even reading The Economist na very
Mm.
conjectural na British. Pero minsan hindi ko maintindihan din. Parang masyadong highfalutin na bombastic minsan. No offense again, I just
Mm.
felt medyo malayo dun sa, the median level of discursive
Mm.
interaction. So, basically, ang feeling ko is, and this is the expression like I was just reading about history of a constitutional revolution in the country, and someone said, yeah, our constitutional revolution was like buying a furniture without having the house. Meaning,
Mm.
ang ganda ng revolution mo and all, pero wala kang, you don't have the infrastructure, the foundation. Anong relevance dito? You have all of these senators saying all of these wonderful, beautiful things, but your education system, your media, right, your information landscape, your thought leaders are not really translating it para malapit sa puso ng tao. In fact, we had also Senator De Lima on this show, and she said, "Oh nga, parang ibang tao hindi nga nila alam or appreciate ano ba yung trabaho ng senador. Hindi trabaho ng senador na sunod-sunuran
Totoo.
sa presidente or ano lang, mangingay lang. They have to be fiscalizer, they have to be legislators. So, a part of me feels baka we're too romanticizing also that era, or there was a rot at the heart of the apple, and that's why we are
Mm.
in the situation right now. Do you get what I'm saying? So I'm slightly more critical of this nostalgic sense of discourse. If it was so good, why did we end up here?
Oo, tama ka, Richard. You know why? That's precisely one of the reasons why dumami ang celebrity politicians. Kasi the public wanted someone refreshing, someone whose words will resonate with them. And
Relatable.
in the literature of the rise of celebrity politicians, laging sinasabi yan, yung maraming mga very technocratic yung language, no? And in the case of the Senate, dahil there was a time, ang dami-dami. Parang ang qualification to be a senator, eh maging ano ka, no? Maging abogado ka, no? Eh nung yung old Congress nga, meron pang nag-i-Espanyol eh. Oh,
Right.
pag nag-research ka sa
Exactly.
archives, 1960s, may
Baka
Espanyol
Latin pa nga,
debate.
nag-Latin debate.
Oo. So, yun yung naging problema. Pero tama ka, no? Even when dapat speech, di ba? Ano pa rin, very, very technocratic. Tama, isa yan sa dapat magbago para mas maka-relate sa mga tao.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to the Habermasian theory of discursive competence, etc. Parang,
Mm.
ako, kung magaling ka talaga, matalino ka talaga, you can actually translate very complex ideas into something that's relatable. I don't know if people have bothered to read the US Constitution. Sobrang liit, sobrang daling intindihin.
Very
Have you
simple.
bothered to listen to, sige, let's say Barack Obama, right? He's a very smart guy. He can do
Mm.
constitutional law lecture, but look at how he talks, di ba? Sobrang
Mm.
ang dali niyang intindihin. So parang minsan sabi ko, parang ang weird na mas nadaling intindihin yung mga katulad ni Obama kasi mga sarili natin, mga ibang politiko. So hindi ko sinasabi na trying hard. I'm just saying na medyo malayo masyado. And to be honest, this is not unique to us. So another country that has gone under the same kind of transformation is India and also Turkey. So if you look at India, for instance, for a long time, yung Congress Party, di ba, ito yung Nehru Gandhi
Mm.
family,
Mm.
elite, Anglophile, Oxbridge graduates, if you look at their debates, amazing and all. Pero yung mga karamihan ng mga Indians hindi makarelate. And eventually, they went for someone like Modi. Na very much like Digong, di ba? Actually, mas magaling mag-English pa nga si Digong eh. Someone very relatable and all. Si Turkey naman, very interesting because in Turkey, for a long time, their political elite were the so-called white Turks. Ito yung mga Turks na European ang dating. Some of them look European, etc. projecting. And then someone like Erdogan comes in and says, hindi, Turk tayo, Muslim tayo, ganito tayo, masa tayo. And that suddenly made him very relatable and all of that. So we're seeing that in a lot of, let's say, fragile or distressed third wave democracies, no? Or na kung saan talagang once you have this kind of disconnect, it's open for populist takeover.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Oo.
we're not unique in that sense. Kaya nga sabi ko, so what is the way forward? So for instance, I remember discussion I had with Bam last year. Sabi ko, tignan mo yung kaso ni Raul Gandhi. So Raul Gandhi is yung latest member ng Congress Party from the Nehru family and all. Half Italian, 10 times more
Mm.
Konya than me. Used to drive Ferraris with Italian girlfriends in front of
Oo.
Italian embassy. So yari siya ni Modi. Kasi si Modi parang digong eh. Di ba?
Oo, oo, oo,
Parang
oo.
ginagawa niya kay Maros. Pangatlong ihimo na yan. Yung mga ganun yung parang inatake
Oo.
lang niya. So what did the guy do? He transformed. Ang ginawa niya, nag-listening tour siya, pumunta siya sa mga kung saan-saan sa India,
Oo,
di ba? Nagbekos, ay sorry, kumain-kain siya ng kaya. You know what I'm saying? Naglagay siya ng beard. He completely transformed. And then he became relatable, di ba? And then,
Yeah.
ito pa, I watched this guy before. So I think he's a graduate of Harvard and I think Cambridge. So his accent is different now. Dati yung English niya, yung mas neutral. Ngayon yung
Mm.
English niya, parang mga Indian si English niya.
Mm.
Pati yan, pinalitan niya eh. Pati yung accent niya, paano, yung pananalitan niya. So, you can say that's Machiavellian, that's political. But for me, nagets niya, you have to be relatable. So, I think
Yeah.
models around the world whereby, o nga no, hindi tayo relatable eh. Hindi tayo, parang,
Oo.
hindi tayo abot eh. So, adjust tayo. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm coming from in terms of my critique of that Senate of the Golden Era thing.
Yeah. I think it also has to do with dahil yung post-colonial legacy, we're not comfortable with the language dahil it's not our first language, 'di ba? Pwede rin 'yun. Tapos secondly, alam mo importante talaga yung imaging eh. Sabi nga ang politics is just perception, 'di ba? Especially in the age of social media, where even the mundane, no? can be, kasi 24/7 ang news cycle eh, di ba? Even the mundane can be posted online, no? Si Robin Padilla, nag-ano siya, no? Ng bigote niya, nagupit siya ng bigote niya. Alam nyo, nung time ko, meron ding senador na nagugupit, nagdadala ng nail cutter. Pero wala pang social media noon eh. So walang magpipicture,
Sayang,
di ba?
wala siyang content.
Oo, pero yung anak niya, laging sinasabihan yung aide niya na pakitanggal yung nail cutter ha, pagka pupunta na ng session. Yung ano, sorry, pagpupunta na yung tatay ko dyan sa session hall, confiscate nung para wag makita. Eh pero all the more now, di ba? So yun eh. Pero ang
So,
problema niya, may sumasagot dito na dati ring taga-senado.
gusto ko magtanong
Kasi
sa,
may
meron din drip-drip
pinapangala.
dati? Meron drip-drip? Nagdi-drip ng vitamins ng ano?
Ay, grabe yun, grabe yun. Oo. So, meron din daw sumasagot dito, meron din daw nagtsatsyane. So, pinapatanggal. So, yung ganun, ano? Pero, ang nakakatakot din, baka sumikat pa, di ba?
Yun nga eh, naghihindi rin kasi siya eh. Ito ang
Oo.
Senado, ito ang aking ano.
Oo, may gumawa ng ganyan kay Bolsonaro na study, no?
Yeah.
Ah, sabi niya, the more na, and I also applied it to Duterte, the more na parang binabastos mo kasi yung elements of power or symbolisms of power, yung presidential, yung rostrum, or yung Senate hearing, the more na nai-endear yung tao dahil parang, oy, pinapapasok, parang binabastos mo sa amin yung isang space na hindi kami makapasok. Di ba? So,
Transgressive. Oh, yung
ah,
transgressive. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yun ang
Yeah.
ano lang. So, kasi dati, sabi natin, di ba, Senate, dapat ganito. The Diokno era, the ganyan, ano? Pero baka tapos na rin yung era talaga na yun eh. Hindi na talaga mababalik.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being respectable and statesman. Like, ako naman, for me, my ideal statesman is someone who can switch, who can be very respectable when he needs to be, and then can be very
Mm.
relatable. I mean, so one of the quotes I love about Napoleon Bonaparte, I'm not saying I endorse his politics, is that, sabi niya, my mind is like a set of drawers, and I'll take out whichever drawer fits the moment. So pagkasama niya
Mm.
yung mga elite na Parisian, he will talk about Voltaire, he will talk about philosophy. Pero kung kasama niya yung mga sundalo, ay ano, parang ano, boy kanto, di ba? So
Oo.
leadership, I think the true leadership is that
Yeah.
ability to communicate at multiple levels. So for me, even with the information age, in fact, that's why we have a vlog and podcast like this. You
Mm.
have to stratify your communication strategy and relatable. I think Rafi Tulfo is a very interesting case, right? Kasi,
Exactly.
my goodness, there are pages, Gene, that have millions of views. All they do is they just edit Rafi Tulfo berating yung mga officials sa mga hearings sa Senado. It's a whole cottage industry. Just
Mm.
that. So I was telling to my American friends, sabi niya, can you imagine C-SPAN, yun yung Congress
Oo.
nila.
Oo.
Imagine that goes viral. How is that, I said in the Philippines, that's what happens. Like they get the highlights of that congressman or senator like berating someone, and it becomes content. So I think
And they like it.
and
They
people
like
love
it.
it. They feel
Mm.
empowered. Just like you said, oh nga, itong mga opisyalis, hindi sumasagot sa amin. I watched one TikTok of Rafi Tulfo. It was very interesting. So it was para siyang emergency call dun sa mga parents sa parang DepEd yan or something.
Mm.
So sabi niya, oh, ito ba emergency call? Oh, tawagan natin. Biglang tinawagan. Nung tinawagan, sumagot yung guy. And ang sabi nung guy, ay hindi, tumawag ka sa ibang number naman. Biglang nagets niya si Rafi pala yung tumawag. Ay, sir, inaayos pa namin yung kabila. Oh my God, napaya sila. Tapos sabi nila, de, pinasa mo ako. Tawagin ko nga yung isa. Tapos nung tumawag niya, wala naman sumasagot. So sabi ko, wala pa nang sumasagot eh. Palakpakan yung mga, you get what I'm saying? Like, we can bash the Tulfos and we say they're populist or demagogic, ganun. But they're showing also like maybe gusto ng tao to see that kind of relatable, visceral kind of
Yeah.
governance accountability.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nako, kaya nga watch out kung matuloy yung impeachment trial, may mga superstars diyan na lalabas. May mga superstars. Meron din maka-cancel, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, knowing Philippine politics, I mean, there's always a new Fashion Week, new season. But for me, just seeing Robin Hood Padilla in the robe, like Bato in the robe, I think that's like, ano na yan, that's, ano na yan, blockbuster na yan, may kalaban ng Superman. Jin, I know we extended a little bit too much kasi natuwa tayo sa mga discussion
Mm.
natin about our amazing, wonderful senators. now, just to talk about this impeachment issue, what is important? What should people do, and what should people watch out for? And what are your general expectations? Obviously, prepare for surprises, but what are your general expectations?
Sa akin, the impeachment trial must really happen. Mahirap i-explain sa tao pag hindi nangyari yun. And whatever the verdict will be, harapin natin. Kasi ano as a student and teacher of politics, di ba, na-witness ko rin yung 2000 to 2001, yung kay ERAP, no? Nag-crumble yung institution nagkaroon ng people power. So ngayon dapat matuloy and dapat harapin talaga yung accountability and yeah, because that's part of democracy. Dito natin makikita kung are we slowly consolidating our democracy or not. That's one. Second, yung pressure from civil society groups, very important. For instance, yung Tindig Pilipinas and all the groups associated with it just concluded a what do you call this, a press conference days ago, and they're amping up the pressure because of the ano na malapit na yung SONA. So, and hindi dapat tigilan, no? Hindi dapat tigilan. Plus, I think the impeachment trial should happen within the next few months before 2025 ends. Kasi may reason na naman sila. Ay, marami. Kasi ngayon, yung mga bills are going to be just read on the floor and then hearings pa lang. So wala pa masyadong makakalendar na urgent sa floor ng Senate. So they will have more time. There will be no reason for them to say, ano na kami, press for time, ganito, ganyan, ganyan. So sana mangyari yun. It will be a very interesting chapter in our history.
Right. On that amazing note, isa pang last singit natin yan. Jin, moving forward, how do you see the pink movement? Obviously, back in 2022, a lot of us reacted in
Mm.
different platforms to the. I mean, it was really historic. It was really amazing. I never saw so many people in the streets in the Philippines. I
Yeah.
was in the Hong Kong
Mm.
protests. I have
Mm.
been in different parts of the world where I saw tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. But to see that happening in our own country and multiple times and voluntarily based, 'di ba? Hindi naman nahakot mga 'yan. That was really amazing. But many people felt na walang follow through in terms of translating those spontaneous explosion of enthusiasm into something that goes beyond the election cycle, especially after
Mm.
nanalo yung unity team. Now, 2025 natapos na. We had some good surprises. Marami mga artista natalo.
Mm.
Ito yung mga artista. I have nothing against artista, but ito yung mga artista who are treating Senate as a retirement, home.
Mm.
It doesn't work that way.
Mm.
But more importantly, you had tremendously successful, campaign for Akbayan, for Bam, for Kiko, etc. Really
Mm.
all over the place success, despite the limitation of that. So, in theory, they could be a third force, right? But
Yes.
nevertheless, there are concerns, saan tayo papunta? Because it looks like the Riza understanding of where we should go is not necessarily the same or exactly as what probably Bam or Lenny understand it to be. I'm
Mm.
not saying magkalaban sila. I think within every party or movement, there are going to be different tendencies, right? But my sense is Risa is different from Lenny. Risa is different definitely from Bam, right? And Kiko is probably somewhere in the middle, right? How do you see that those tendencies converging, or how could they converge to become a major force come 2028? Because I want this discussion to set the tone, hopefully, for our future discussions and interventions,
Mm.
because hindi naman to natin ma-cover lahat ngayon, but I
Yeah,
just want
yeah.
people to have a sense of where you see things going, because back in 2022 you were one of the more prominent analysts who kept on
Mm.
focusing on is essentially the pink magic. Yeah, the pink magic.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Richard. That's a very good question. I think, I don't know if they've done it, if they've collectively assessed the results of the 2025 elections. They have to, Bam Aquino won the Lingayen Lucena
Corridor,
corridor,
yeah.
and that's phenomenal. So they have to, use evidence-based, what do you call this, analysis so that they can put more science into projecting what they need to strategize for come 2028. And the way to start it, I mean, when to start it, it has to be now. That's one. And then If they have that kind of an assessment, they will need to really put more strategies and sort of parang strat planning. Dapat meron silang ganun so that everyone is on the same page, no? So I think that's very important.
Yeah, we don't have exit polls, right? So that
I
complicates
know.
the post-mortem. Unlike 2016 when SWS and TV5 had it, I was reassured by TV5 that there will be one in 2028. But having said that, I think heuristically and instinctively, if not through proxy indicators like pre-election surveys, it looks like the Gen Z and the youth vote not only were the majority bloc this time, but they also introduced some, dynamic, right, into the
Mhm.
election. What is again, obviously as political scientists, we cannot say anything definitively unless we see the numbers in
Oo.
detail. But what is our sense, let's just say, of the youth vote and how it should be harnessed to move in a certain direction? Because just to go back into where we started, the reason why I'm very concerned about the BAM Kiko optics at least is baka
Yeah.
alienate yung mga kabataan na sabi na eto na nga eto na yung chance natin para
Oo.
bagong politika tapos pragmatic na naman tayo, practical na naman tayo. We have been hearing that for a long, long time already.
Totoo. The COMELEC projects that in 2028, 65% of the electorate will be from Gen Z and millennials, no? I think the order of the day is to know their concerns, their desires, their dreams, and to sort of align whatever the agenda this progressive bloc will be having within the next 3 years with what the young people want. And it's not difficult to do that. Meron tayong young adult fertility studies, meron tayong National Demographic Health Survey. If you really want to put science into, I wish there are people who can do that, no? And that's something to look forward to. Lots of surveys, pwede kang mag-mine ng surveys from SWS and all and Pulse Asia and other reputable survey organizations. Sana may gumawang ganun. In other countries kasi 'di ba may think tanks yung mga parties. That's what they should do. I don't know if that's something that the progressive bloc is doing. Kasi clearly, Richard, may opening. May opening
Exactly. My
sa
historic
result ng
juncture.
2025
Yeah,
elections.
my historic juncture. No, no, I absolutely agree with it. And I think that's one of the projects I want to focus on in the coming years or so is do focus group discussions,
Exactly.
do analytics, go around the country. We have a couple of new things we're trying to put together with the other academics and experts. Hopefully, we can also have more of you also with us, Jean, because yung parang Project 2028 ang tawag ko dyan, right? We have
Okay.
to understand what is the historical juncture, what are the opportunities, and some would say how to make sure the Dutertes don't come back. But I don't want to make it too political. First of all, intindihin natin. Ako, to be honest, one reason I was not totally surprised with the election results and many other surveys that we're seeing right now showing is because I saw consumer sentiment surveys by
Mm.
one very big company which has access to tens of millions of consumers. Hindi ko na sabihin anong company yan. So
Mm.
they did a briefing for me, and we look at the numbers. And interestingly, for instance, their numbers showed that among the Gen Zs and millennials, up to a quarter of them decide on the election day mismo. That's why I said
Mm.
napaka-naive to think yung survey ng late April would predict what happens in May, come May. Because in the last 12 days or 11 days, still many things could change, right? Not to
Mm.
mention, of course, there are also tactical contingent, medyo intelligence gathering na yun. Ano yung mga ginawa ng INC? What were the negotiations on the
Yeah.
command vote? I think that's given. That's something we have always been studying. But what's new right now is also this kind of very interesting dynamic that this kind of a protean dynamic to the Gen Z vote and all. So I think all of us in one way or another, kailangan natin pag-aralan yun because a lot is at stake. Ako naman, I'm looking at countries all around the world. Just the other day, I was on Monocle Radio again. So they were interviewing different people from dynastic democracies, right? So I did the Philippines because that's also the title of my new Journal of Democracy article, Dynastic Democracy. The guy after me was Pita. This is the guy who was supposed to be the Prime Minister of Thailand, 41 years old. Yung bata, yung
Oo.
Ferrari, So he teaches now at Harvard Kennedy School. At marami daw siyang Pilipino na mga estudyante na who want to learn from the experience of Future Forward Party. So I'm saying if Thailand, which is an absolute monarchy, not really a democracy, not even a democracy in the Filipino sense of the word, was able to produce something like that, why can't we? But we are
Mhm.
not going to go there if we don't get a couple of things together. So that's why I'm very happy about success of Akbayan, rise of new generation of leaders. But ano yun eh, sabi nga ni Lenin, di ba? Without a good theory, there's no good revolution. So for me, without a good understanding of the analytics, there would
Exactly.
not be a transformative success in 2028. Jean, are there before we wrap up, medyo Ezra Klein style yun. Are there specific studies or your own works that you think people have to that you believe people should check out to have a better understanding of the state of affairs and also your own research and focus?
Yeah.
May
Um,
dapat silang hintayin na may palabas na working paper or something like that? Please
yeah,
share.
I'm doing a research on the cost of politics. It's funded by a UK-based NGO, and it's kind of different because the methodology is that it's qualitative. So it's financial and non-financial costs of doing politics, especially on women and young people. So yeah, hopefully, Richard, I can speak to you about it once we already have the findings.
Yeah, let's have a proper in-person na lang discussion about
Ah,
that.
yeah. That's good.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that maybe with other analysts and all of that. And is there a working title so far?
The price tag of democracy,
The price tag.
implications for women and young people who want to enter politics.
Perfect. Landyan lahat. Women, youth, at first, as an Ilocano, the most important thing, pera. Datong.
Exactly.
Remember the first time we saw each other was in vegan, right? I was like, wait,
Yes,
kilala
ay
ko to.
oo, naalala
Remember
ko.
that in vegan? Right.
Oo.
Did you have a sense another Ilocano will be back in Malacanang? No, I'm just kidding. Now, before, so obviously I just avoided talking about BBM. Maybe we can talk about BBM after the sauna na lang and what should be the priorities. But I'm glad at least today. Thank you so much, Professor Jean Franco, Dr. Franco, for giving us at least a kind of an insider's view. Parang ano ka rin eh, para ka rin sila Bam and Kiko, minority majority. Ikaw insider outsider, insider outsider view. And obviously next time mas mahalaga pa yan sa BBM talk natin, skincare kasi hindi ka lang pang politika, skincare din. But because we had too many discussion of kilay, I think we had enough of aesthetic discussion today. We'll leave it to the next meeting. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Franco,
you,
and looking forward
Richard.
to catching up with you soon. God bless.
Salamat. Take care. Bye-bye.